Hi, I'm Sandra Wint, and you're watching Goddess TV. I'm Sandra Wint, and I'm an independent distributor for Senegence Cosmetics. Our most well-known product is Lip Sense, but we have a full line of cosmetics and skincare products in addition to the lipstick. And I have my, I don't remember what else you asked me. Sorry.
Just to introduce yourself. So
Okay.
that's it. Um, so what inspired Wild Lips?
What inspired Wild Lips? I had a job in corporate America. I'd been doing it for a very long time and was tired because I was not spending enough time with my children and felt that I was working really hard, and had lost track of what the reasons were that I was doing it. I mean, we all know that we have to go to work, we all know that we have to earn a living, but the reasons that we do that is to provide for our family, and I really felt like I wasn't spending quality time with my family, and that really started to weigh heavy on my mind. I lost some people that were close to me, and when that happens to you, you start to question what your life direction is all about. And so I took a year off work to rest, rejuvenate, and in that period of time, I found a product that I fell in love with, and I got so excited about the opportunity that I decided that I was going to start my own business, and I've been having a complete blast since doing that.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. So what's the difference between the Wild Lip Stain and ordinary lipstick?
Mm. So our product stays on anywhere from 4 to 18 hours from the time that you apply it. And you can drink a cup of coffee, you can kiss somebody, and the lipstick's not going to come off. It works by sticking to your lip. It creates a bond with your lip. And that bond wears off over time, and as a result, that's when the product starts to come off, as opposed to a lip stain, which actually gets absorbed by the skin and it stains the skin. Our product doesn't do any of that, and it's just amazing, and it moisturizes and hydrates your lips. So it's a nice product to wear.
That's awesome. And then I heard you say it doesn't, you can wear the coffee and everything. I noticed you did some memes of that with the 7 hours.
It doesn't come off.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I noticed your boys have been in sports such as karate, soccer,
Yes.
things like that. How important is it to keep them active and engaged?
In the business, or active and engaged in just life?
In life.
In life.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I struggle with as a mom is, how do we create an environment where our kids are challenged to explore and be creative, which comes from being bored, right? When you're bored, you create activities and play that stimulates your mind, right? You build forts, you run around, you interact, and you learn social skills. You learn how to negotiate differences. You learn how to negotiate struggles. You learn how to be mad at somebody and then resolve that conflict. And I feel like we lose that when we spend a lot of time playing on electronic games, where you don't have to do that, because if there's a conflict, you can walk away from that conflict without ever really resolving it. And it doesn't require any face-to-face interaction. So as a mom, I really struggle with my kids spending way too much time on the electronic devices and not enough time just being bored. And through that boredom, developing play. So I like to keep my children engaged in sports, because I feel that both individual sports and team sports are a great way to learn your talents and to learn to stretch yourself, but also learn cooperation, disappointment, victories and how to win and still be a good sport about it, and maybe not always get what you want in the process.
That's awesome. That's true. So how do you find balance in doing so?
Keeping them involved in sports and
business, and
and
then you
biz-
having your business and everything like
right.
that.
So when I worked corporate job 8 till 5, 5 days a week, the kids went to daycare after school, and I really felt, and this is one of the ways that I felt like we weren't really living a quality life. I really felt like it was a rush to get everybody out in the morning so we could go to work, and then it was like rush out of work to get to daycare, to pick them up from daycare, to get them home, to get them through dinner and groceries and food and homework and baths, and get them to bed so that we could do it all over again. And so one of the things that I love about having my own home business is we don't do that, because my office is in my dining room, and my commute is extremely small. My schedule is mine to make. I can determine the days that I want to work longer. I can work out a plan with my husband if we have a snow day, or for some reason if the children can't go to school because they're sick, then that becomes less of pressure for the whole family. I remember there were times when I was working full time at my corporate job where we'd get the text at 5 in the morning saying the school was closed, and then it'd be open up the computers, both my husband and I, and we'd sit there trying to figure out the negotiations that would need to be required for us to be home with the kids during the day. So I really enjoy having my own business and having the flexibility to make those determinations and those decisions, and support my husband while he goes to work, because he still wants to work full time, and be able to be at home. So this summer, when my children were home all summer long, there were times when I needed to get work done, and so they either went outside or we went to the pool, and I did my work at the pool, because our pool has a gazebo and electrical power, so I could plug in my computer and I could do my work there. A lot of my work is relationship calls, so reaching out to clients, reaching out to customers, reaching out to potential customers, working with other vendors, and those are phone calls that can be made really from anywhere. So there were times when what I really love about this work is that I can do it anywhere.
That's awesome, the convenience of it.
It's a convenience, absolutely. Now, it is work. So there were times, absolutely, when the kids wanted me to do something and there just wasn't the possibility of doing that. But those become fewer because my schedule is mine to set.
Okay, I understood. So you were recently invited to be a mentor to a Richmond High School student. So tell us how that came about and how you're feeling about that.
So there is a mentorship program. It's called BA Mentor, that the Willoughby Eastlake schools put on, and they recruit from the schools in the area any juniors that are interested in exploring an entrepreneurial experience. These could be children whose families have businesses, and the children are thinking, I'd like to take over the business from my parents when they decide that they'd like to retire, or I'd like to go work in the business. It could be children who are looking to create their own business entirely. So I have several networking groups that I like to participate in. And these are a group of entrepreneurs like myself, small business owners, who gather once a week or maybe once a month to just say, here's what my business is, here's what I do, and to get to know each other and meet and see if there's opportunities for collaboration. And Maria Giancola, who is the leader of one of my networking groups, had been asked to be a mentor, and she invited me to also be a mentor. And I think it's an interesting opportunity for me. First of all, I'm thrilled. But I think it's an interesting opportunity because I've been on both sides of the fence. So I've been in corporate life, and I understand that world really well, and I know what large corporations are looking for as young people are coming into those workforces. And I really understand, having run my own business for the last 18 months, what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So I feel I have a really good balance of both sides to share with the student. And we are paired with a student. Some have an interest in the same field that we're in. Some have an interest in a different area. And the coordinators do a really good job of connecting the children with a mentor. And we work together for the next year. And then as they move into senior year, there may be an opportunity to do that as well. So business plans, marketing, social media, how you use social media, what you post on social media, how to advertise your business, how to network. These are all topics that we as mentors are encouraged to talk about with the students that are assigned to us.
That is awesome. So what are you most eager to get to the mentee? Like, what do you want to stand out most to them out of the experience with you?
Failure. So what I mean by that is I think that as a society, we are very conditioned to worry about failing. And in business, failure is such an important lesson because it becomes an opportunity. So I have learned that failing quickly and looking at that failure and saying, what did I learn from it? What should I do differently next time? Is such a great learning experience, and to not fear it because we're going to fail. It may take several tries before you find the opportunity that's right, that's the right fit. You may try something or try to talk to somebody about an opportunity and they're not interested. And rather than take that as a crushing blow and as a detriment to moving forward, I think those are great signals about, are we on the right path? Are we doing the right thing? Are we resonating with our market? Are we resonating with our supporters? Do I have the right direction set? And so rather than look at failure as failure, look at failure as a great opportunity to readjust and move forward.
So you recently made homemade California sushi rolls.
Oh, yes, I did.
How did they turn out? And can you give a quick recipe for them?
Sure. So my children love sushi. And I have 12-year-old boys. They're twins, and my daughter is 9. And my boys are at that stage where they eat and eat and eat, and it just seems like they have 2 hollow legs, and I don't know where they're putting it. So to go to Giant Eagle or to go to a restaurant and buy sushi can be a very expensive family dinner. So I decided I was going to roll my own, and I looked up some recipes on the internet, figured out how to do it, and got some sushi rice and got some nori, and off we went. They were so good. We've done them 3 times now. And what's been really interesting to me is how involved the kids get in the process. They want to do it. So, if I'm making dinner, I don't get a lot of volunteers, but if I'm making sushi, everybody's there. Everybody wants to roll their own roll. Everybody wants to do it. They all want to slice the vegetables. And so it's become a real fun evening for all of us. I can't roll them fast enough for them because they're eating them. So it tends to be a longer eating cycle because they'll roll theirs, they'll go eat them. I'm helping the next person. But the basic technique is you make the sushi rice. I don't have a rice cooker, so I just make it in a pot. A cup of sushi rice to a cup and a half of water. Nothing else in the pot, just the water and the rice. Bring the water to a boil, and then lower it down and let it absorb the water. The trick is to keep the pot lid on. And then you need sushi vinegar, which is rice vinegar, sugar, and there's probably one other thing I forget. Oh, a little bit of salt. You combine them together, and there's a ratio, I can't quite remember it. And then while the rice is still warm after it's made, you put the sushi vinegar on top of it and just kind of mix it. And then the nori pieces you can buy at any supermarket these days. It's just the flat seaweed, and you cut them in half, put them out. You can either roll them by hand, or they sell these bamboo mats, and you put the rice on the nori, and then whatever you want inside of it. So California rolls are crab and avocado and cucumber. You can also just make straight cucumber rolls. You can just do crab with some Philadelphia cheese. You can get creative with it. We cut up a mango, and we put mango inside of one. So that was a lot of fun. And so once you put the rice and you flatten it out, you can either flip it over and put the ingredients on the inside so that the rice is on the outside, or you can just put the ingredients on top of the rice so that the seaweed is on the outside, the nori is on the outside. And then you roll it, and you squish it, like squeeze it with the sushi mat, or the bamboo mat. And hopefully, if you've done it right, it holds, because the trick is not to put enough rice that it spreads, but not to put so much rice that you can't close it when you've wrapped it. There were a few failed attempts.
So you had to learn that the hard way, huh?
Yes.
So you've also grown cantaloupe and an abundance of mint, in your words. So what inspired you to start gardening and growing your own fruits and veggies?
Yes. So we need to eat 5 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables to stay healthy. And that impacts everything from our immune system to our skin and the appearance of our skin, how our body responds, and how it's able to grow and make sure that we have the nutrients that we need. And as a culture in the United States, in general, we eat way too much sugar and not enough fruits and vegetables. And that was certainly true for my daughter. She liked cucumbers, but not much else. And getting her to eat any vegetables was very trying. So about a year ago, I started with Juice Plus. And you can get, which is whole fruits and vegetables in a capsule or in a gummy format for children. And I started her on that, and I've seen a significant change in her eating as a result of doing that. So for example, she was one of the people who would not ever eat sushi at my house. And then just 4 months after putting her onto the Juice Plus, she started eating sushi to the point where she asked to eat eel. Which was very adventurous for her, and she loved it. And so now she's become much more adventurous with her food choices, and I know that she's getting the fruits and vegetables that she needs, so anything she actually eats over and above what she's getting in the capsules and the gummies is bonus. So one of the really cool things that Juice Plus has is a hydroponics garden, and it's a tower where you can grow your own foods organically because you're not using any pesticides. So we got a tower garden this year, and we planted tomatoes and cucumbers and watermelon and cantaloupe and Brussels sprouts and kale and 4 different kinds of lettuces and strawberries, and I lost track of all the really cool things that we planted. So cucumber, we learned a lot about. Cucumber is very much like a weed. It takes over everything, and it grows everywhere. And I harvest at least a cucumber a day, sometimes 3. It has taken over my deck. It is huge. We have 2 cantaloupes that are growing. We have 1 watermelon that's almost ready to harvest. the moths did a really great number on the Brussels sprouts, to the point where all the leaves were chewed up by all the caterpillars, because they plant their eggs in it, and then when they open up, the caterpillars right there have their source of food, and they devoured the kale, they devoured the Brussels sprouts. So I actually had to take those out this year, or this week. But we got a lot of kale, and that was great for omelets. So that was the other really cool thing was, my daughter, who wouldn't eat vegetables before, asked for kale with her omelet.
Wow.
So it's been really fun. The kids get very excited about it because they know we're growing their own vegetables and that they're responsible for it. So they get excited about the vegetables that are growing. They come inside, they want to eat them, and they taste amazing.
That is awesome. That sounds like a wonderful experience. So what is your favorite wild lips color?
Oh, I have so many.
If you had to choose one, what would it be?
Oh, so my favorite thing to do is combine, because the colors need to dry. You apply in 3 layers, and each layer dries. In between, you can add different colors to lighten or darken or change colors. And so my very, very favorite combination is persimmon, which is actually this color right here.
Okay.
And Kiss Me Katie, which is a very light pinky coral. And on top of them, it forms, for me, such an incredibly neutral, very natural shade of lip color for me. It is my favorite one, and I get so many compliments. And if Kiss Me Katie ever goes out, I don't know what I'm going to do.
You say you'll lose it. So you mentioned that you were in corporate America. What were you pursuing before Wild Lips?
So I was an IT project manager. And what I did was primarily on the hardware side, so data centers, networks, servers, desktop support, and the systems that support those. So I spent 30 years in the IT area, and I don't know, 24 of those years as a manager and as a project manager. And that can get it was a lot of fun. When I first started, it was a lot of fun, and for many, many, many years, it was a lot of fun. You don't do something for that long and not enjoy what you're doing. So I've watched the personal technology area, the personal computer, really take off. I've seen networks take off. I was at the start of when networks were first coming in, and I really watched that whole industry change, develop, grow, and it's been fascinating and so much fun to be a part of it, but I was ready to let it go.
So a little off topic here, do you vote?
I can't.
You can't vote.
I cannot vote.
Do you care to give us a story?
Yes. So I am actually a Canadian citizen. And I came to the United States because my husband's job got transferred to the United States. So we came here on visas, work visas. And over the years, we've transitioned to permanent residence. So the way the immigration process works is after you become a permanent resident, you have to wait 5 years before you can apply for citizenship. So we got our permanent residency approved the day before I delivered my daughter. So that was February of 2009.
Okay.
So when she became 5 years later, we were eligible to apply for citizenship for the U.S. And it was certainly something that we intend to do. Just life got a little bit crazy because the year after we became eligible, we decided it might be a good idea to move. And I've sort of been recovering ever since. Okay. But yes, so that is why I cannot vote. But yes, we will be applying for our citizenship, and we will definitely be voting. And my children are all U.S. citizens, and this is a topic that we talk about at the dinner table a lot with them, that it is a responsibility to vote. It is not something that should be taken lightly. It is not something that should be taken for granted. A lot of people gave their lives, their families' lives, for the right to vote. And I think that when you don't vote, when you don't exercise that right, then you do a disservice to them and their families and their sacrifice.
That's awesome. Start with.
Did you get that?
That's them coming in, but I can edit this part out. I just wanted them to come in. I'm gonna pull it up for 1 second. And this part I can edit out. Only person with a key can come in. That's how you get access.
Okay. Is she okay out there?
Yeah, she is. Everybody is family. It's family owned.
Okay.
So,
Good.
how important is civic engagement to you?
Define civic engagement for me.
Like the interaction of the community, and all communities is what I'm speaking of, with the voting process is what we're speaking on now, or being involved in the political world.
I am, like I said, we talk about it a lot at home with our children, and we try to represent both sides of an argument well. So it's really easy, I think, to position your own part of an argument. This is what I believe, and this is why I believe it, and therefore I am right. It's really hard, I think, to really see an issue from somebody else's point of view, and yet I think it's our responsibility to do that. You can make your decision, and it might still be the same decision you started off with, but I think it's so critical from a compassion perspective, from an understanding perspective, to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and understand the issue, as hard as it may be, to understand the issue from their point of view. What could be driving them? I think we are all rational people. I think that we all want the best. So if somebody believes so strongly in an issue and it's so very different from my position, I owe them the floor to listen to what they have to say, and I think it's so hard to do that. So we try really hard with our kids to say, I mean, they know where we stand on issues, but to say, well, here's what somebody else might feel, and here's why they might be feeling that way, and what do you think, and to encourage their thought process. And I think, like I said earlier, we have an obligation to the people who made this right a possibility for us to execute it with diligence, with seriousness, and with passion, because in so many parts of the world this is not an option. So get to know the issues, get to know the candidates, get to understand what they represent, what they mean, engage. And if you feel like people aren't doing what they say they're going to do or what they should be doing, engage in that as well. So have a conversation, but be respectful and be polite about it. And, you know, there's a lot of conversation that's occurred recently about it's difficult to have a respectful conversation, that respectful conversation is a way to keep people in their place. And I get that. I understand that sometimes you need to be disruptive in order to be heard, because when you're not being disruptive, it can be difficult to be heard, and it can be much easier for people to dismiss you. So there's a balance. For me, there's a balance between being disruptive and being respectful, and I think the obligation is on all of us on all sides of an issue.
Understood.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. It makes sense. And then you also mentioned that it's sometimes hard to have that understanding of the other side, the other person's argument. What would you say makes it hard to have that conversation, or keep it respectful, or to not cause that disturbance?
So I think part of being respectful is listening. And if I can go back to the conversation before that I was having about my children and video games, I think I watch my children have an argument and they're so committed to their position, they don't want to listen to the other person. And in a culture where, or as they're growing up and only playing video games, staying connected with somebody becomes harder. And so that's one of the things that I think that you learn when you go out and you play, right? Is how do you stay connected with somebody that you don't agree with? How do you stay connected when they have such different values, such different positions than your own? And that comes from a willingness to be wrong, a willingness to listen to another point of view, and a willingness to have compassion for somebody who feels differently than you. And when you happen to be in the privileged portion of the argument, meaning if you're a man and talking to a woman who's feeling that she is not an equal, then it's harder because you don't see the world the way a woman sees the world. When you're white, you don't see the world the way you do when you're black. When you are an adult, you don't see the world from the perspective of a child. And so listening and really opening your heart and having the courage to be moved by somebody else's story, that's what makes it hard, because to be vulnerable that way is very challenging. It's also, how do I listen to you but not necessarily agree with you? That's a very challenging thing to do.
You understood. It's like you have to stay open-minded going into those type of situations. Great answer. That was a great answer. How would you describe the importance of networking and collaboration?
Oh, networking is critical, especially in any business, but especially in a direct sales business, because, so if I can take a step back for a moment. So direct sales is